call this meeting to order at 10:03. And do roll call. Carrie? Myself, Jeremy Warner. Ronnie is not with us today. Eric?
Here.
And position 5 is vacant. So Tom? All right. And no council member Wiesner at the moment. And can I get someone to motion to approve the agenda for this month? To approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor? And we'll skip the approval of last month's minutes because you said those will be ready next month.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Then at this time, we'd like to open it up to public comments.
Have anyone who'd like to make a public comment?
I'm kind of more here just to listen and be here in support of something specific, but really, to introduce myself, my name is Tim Stoker, and I'm the president of Little League, North of Little League here. And we would just like to start doing as much as we can from our standpoint of trying to work with the proper processes and things like that to try to see what kind of help we can get and support we can get from the city through this process and others. So we're here for a few different reasons, but I'll just say that.
Okay.
There's nothing else. We can go ahead and move on to the action items. So Brian, do you want to take that away?
Yeah, let's see, we'll start. With Arbor Day. Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, this surface right here is the one with the microphone, so if you can talk towards that one, we'll make sure to get stuff recorded. Are you joining the meeting?
Yeah, I'll connect on here. I'll share my screen on some of these items.
Just a little APA request.
Could we have your name?
My name is Rita Klein. I just want to ask for people to speak loud enough that not only the microphone, but that people who are in the gallery can hear. I couldn't hear a word that he just said.
Oh, sorry, I'm just getting this set up. I'm not
Oh,
speaking
okay.
yet.
So you're mumbling to yourself, but it's hard to know
Just-
because everybody tends to mumble at these meetings.
Okay, hopefully you can kind of see that. So, Arbor Day celebration will be on the 28th. We'll have it at Broadview Elementary School. Right now it's planned to be from 1:30 to 3 p.m. We're going to have an internal staff meeting tomorrow just to go over a few things, and then we'll bring in the rest of the group. So that consists of the Gary Oak Society, the Garden Club, city staff, Broadview Elementary staff, and a few others around the community. We'll do our check-in with everyone probably about 12:30 for our setup. There we'll probably line the field with a oak tree outline earlier that week. Hopefully weather will be kind to us, but that park right next to it, which is designated as Well Site 10 right now, there's no name for that park, has a pretty good tree canopy, and we'll have tents out there as well if we do have some inclement weather. We anticipate having all the kids come out about 1:30, and then we'll have either Mayor Pro Tem or Janet give a just a brief welcome, talk just a little bit about Arbor Day, and we'll help you with kind of those talking points if we have you do that, and then just some brief instructions. So the kids will break out by grades, and they'll have a number of different stations. We'll do an arborist demo. So Bob Bailey, who is our city arborist, he'll have his gear all set up for tree climbing and everything. So he'll go up into the trees, and we'll have some fun activities with kids. We'll have a big book reading for some of the younger grades. Each of the grades will plant trees. We have 10 trees that'll get planted. We'll also have some field games going on that are kind of tree themed. We'll be doing some demonstrations of native artifacts with Gideon, who's a city archaeologist. And then we're going to get everyone together in the field in this kind of outline of an oak tree, and Sabrina will have her little drone up there, and we'll take an overhead shot of all the kids together and have that displayed here at City Hall as well as there at Broadview Elementary School. And the kids will get popsicles and go back to class. So just fun little event, very similar to what we did last year. We're not going to worry about doing the t-shirts or any of that kind of stuff just to save on costs and staff time. But we did get notice that we were awarded a Tree City USA designation. And so we will have this. Oh, sorry, I got it. Choose how I'm sharing this. Are you at the meeting, Brian? Yeah.
I think it's just slow because I'm seeing it on my screen.
Okay. Anyway, we have a Arbor Day banner that we're going to put up. We also have some lawn signs that will go around town as well. I'll look them up. But anyway, so prior to the event, we'll do a proclamation with. No, it's not for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know, something's wrong with that screen. Yes, I can't even control it.
I'm trying to share just that screen.
I can see it.
Anyway, we'll do a proclamation for Arbor Day, as well as presenting the city's Tree USA designation and what's involved with that. And we are going to have each of the grades do a competition for naming of Well Site 10. And so each grade will, in their classes, they'll do a little competition. The winner of that will be submitted as the class submittal for the name. And we'll bring each of those to council, and we'll let council decide who the winner is and what they want to designate that park as. And then we'll do official ordinance proclamation designating that. So right now, that's the plan. We'll have community meetings scheduled here probably a little later this week, and if you guys would like to jump in on that, we'll probably have it as a virtual meeting, make it easy for everyone. Even though we'll have enough of you as a quorum, we won't have any official quorum business. This will just be event planning meeting. So look for that to go out, and let me know if you have any questions, but that should be a fun little event. Anything I can answer from the board on that?
Do you still need me to go to present this to council? I think that was one of the things you mentioned. Okay.
So and that'll be on April 18th. We'll do a proclamation for Arbor Day, and we'll just talk a little bit, we'll just give a brief on the Arbor Day event and the Tree City USA. I believe we ended up pushing back the park board power and duties amendment. Is that right, Mikhail?
I did email it out with the agenda, the proposed changes to the ordinance. Give me a sec, I was gonna pull it up.
Yeah, we can review that a little later. We were just talking about the date for that going to council.
Oh, so, this past week, we just had a meeting with all of the boards and committees folks. And we are getting, Arts Commission is working on their, powers and duties. The Marine Advisory Committee will have to get theirs. Then what we'd like to do is when we get that all together, take it to council at a workshop and talk it through, because staff will be suggesting things like term changes, like maybe trying to get all the boards on a January to December schedule. We'd have, one suggestion would be like even positions would be up in even years, odd positions and odd, which would require 2 or 4 year terms for boards. So it'll be a change. So we want to take that information to council and get their feedback. And then also I forgot, Planning Commission is working on theirs as well. So that will it might be after summer before we are able to get all of those. But we are now meeting with the liaisons for each board to look at those things. So if you want to look at what we sent out and have any comments and feedback, maybe bring that in May. These revisions were some that we brought to the park board some months ago, and then they included the revisions for adding the parks and recreation. So we merged those 2 drafts together, and this is what we came up, and we did go ahead and put the recommendations. The student member is in there that you all discussed, and I think that's what was in there. So if you want to take a look at those changes, and then if you have any concerns, issues, something additional you'd like to see in there, bring that feedback.
So that's under item D then?
Yeah, we'll.
Oh, yeah, I'm
we'll go-
sorry.
We'll go.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to follow.
That's my fault. Sorry, I was in the middle of doing this.
Anything else on the Arbor Day?
I don't know.
Do you want all of us at the city council meeting or just Jana? to present
At the very least, yeah, but you're all welcome to come to it.
Great.
You're welcome to attend every council meeting.
Yeah, I know.
And just a quick note, Councilmember Wiesner did join the meeting during that last discussion. Councilmember Wiesner, can you hear us?
Absolutely, hear you fine.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, you had the double sound. don't you?
Oh.
I can hear him,
Yeah.
so just so you know.
Did Brian sound off?
Hold on,
Oh, no.
just give me a minute. Okay, Councilmember, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move on to Angel de la Creatividad.
Okay, we'll see if I can share my screen this time or not. Let's see. There we go. That should work. Okay. So we met on site at Flintstone Park with a few members of City Council, a few members of the Art Commission, a few members of Parks Board, and others from the community. And so Flintstone Park had already been designated by council as the site for installation of the Angel of Creativity. I'm not going to try to say the official name correctly, but we looked at a number of different location sites. One was kind of near here towards the entrance, going down to the dock. However, we do have the hydroplane race crane that goes in this location, and we also need to stay 50 feet away from the high water mark for the shoreline. We also looked at the pavilion location, somewhere around the flagpole, or basically the location of the flagpole. just different sites. This was the location that the group decided on and was the first choice for the group. A couple of discussion points around this location. So we're able to pull electricity from the flagpole over to light the statue. The statue is white. It'll be facing the entrance of the harbor. Should be quite a sight from in the harbor. We're also looking at some modifications to the park. We'll remove the roundabout arm. We'll make some improvements here to the entrance to the parking lot and expand this parking lot a little bit just to give more parking options. But we'll reclaim the rest of this and turf that in, so you have more of a grass area, more of a park feel there. You want to put benches, picnic tables back here, and look at other improvements to the park. Those won't happen right away, but we do want to activate this space. One of the big concerns with this park has always been its proximity to the transportation station over here and having transients kind of loitering in the park. So, you know, we can take away amenities and try and make it as interesting and desirable for people to loiter in, but that's really not the purpose of public parks, right? A better way to really address that is rather to activate the park and have more of the public utilize the park, and that makes it more uncomfortable for people that are just sort of camping out there to want to loiter around. So we'll look at improvements of these pathways. We have a lot, you know, when we were out there, we saw a lot of people walking dogs and baby strollers and just walking along the shorelines. It's a beautiful walk there. So that's kind of the future of this. Councilor Munns had suggested relocation of the plaque here. This flagstaff was a gift and kind of a memorial from the Navy. I think at the time we were talking about it, there was a thought that it was the plaque itself that was the memorial, but that's not the case. It's actually the flagpole. The plaque actually just talks about the flagstaff. I really don't think we want to relocate this at all. We'll probably just go in and make some improvements to the base of it and just give it a little love and a paint job and get rid of the rusting that's happening under here. There's talk about the flagpole coming to the end of its life. Well, I mean, it was up in the Navy area like 40 years before it actually came here. So we're just going to make some improvements to that and keep that location. So yeah, that's kind of what came out of that discussion. Some of the thoughts around the different areas. I think the only reason we are looking at this location as well was there's already a cement pad, but that pad would have to be demoed anyway. The foundation for the statue goes deeper and it's a different kind of setup. So that doesn't really bias anything as far as centrally in the park. We're going to kind of change that configuration with the removal of this roundabout. And the group seemed to have a desire to have the statue as far forward towards the shoreline as possible, so you get a good view of it past the apartments that are over here. You can kind of see it from just about everywhere in the harbor. So I'll leave it back to you guys for any discussions, and we'd like to have a motion of recommendation one way or another for council for consideration for them to kind of ratify this location that was agreed on by the group. Do
we have an idea of how many parking spaces we're going to try to get in there? Because on a busy day, people will just park wherever, like the grass becomes the parking lot there.
Yeah, we haven't designed in what that parking lot improvement is, but you can probably estimate double what's existing right now.
Yeah, I'm just wondering with the turf being installed, if it might be more judicious to expand parking further onto where the roundabout's going to go away, rather than trying to turf that whole area.
You're gonna get a few more parking spots up in front of the flower bed too, when that goes away.
And then if we're gonna widen that road to make dual traffic access, then, you know, it's going to move us, you know, almost parallel with the flagpole, really, to get cars to be able to park in there. So I'm just curious as to how that's gonna look, and then with no plans to relocate the flagpole, it sort of becomes its own roundabout in a way. I'm curious how that's going to actually work. I'm fine with the location of the statue. I think that all is very wise as far as the thought process there. I'm just curious how it's gonna work out for parking, because it really does need, especially if we're gonna activate that space.
Yeah, we can send out what that preliminary design looks like with the streets once we get that.
So we will be, just one proposal, there won't be options. This is for you.
Well, originally we talked about, and we will mention options. So we'll mention the options of the other two locations that were in consideration, which is the little shelter here and where the flagpole currently is existing. But just as I mentioned, hey, those were other areas that we considered, but this was what was voted on by the group for the desirable location.
I don't have any problem with that, but there was some discussion, as I recall, about the flagpole itself, not the monument part, as either being relocated or taken out, or not have the flagpole.
Yeah, so there was discussion. I mean, this is totally separate project from the statute, but yeah, there was concern about rusting that was happening at the base of the flagpole and in the foundation that it is sitting in, and needing to improve that. Originally, they were talking about, well, we should replace the flagpole with a smaller flagpole and either keep it in that location or move it somewhere else in the park. But I think at the time they didn't realize that it wasn't the plaque that was the monument; it's the flagstaff itself.
Yeah.
So we'll just go ahead and make improvements to that. Right now, there's the desire, or the consensus, I would say, is to leave it where it is and just make improvements to it.
I'd like to add a comment. I was there, so I was here. To me, if you leave the flagpole, you're going to have two competing structures that are both 30 feet tall. And that just visually doesn't make sense to me. So I'm questioning the need for a flagpole, leave the monument, and I'm okay where the proposed location of the.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is that it's the flagstaff that is the monument. It's not the plaque. So if we were to relocate it, Councilor Munns was originally wanting to relocate this over to the Veterans Memorial Park, which is just down a ways. Which is certainly doable. We need to do a permit, but we just want to make sure that that's a good, appropriate location if we were to do that.
Okay, so
But like I said, that's a separate project.
Yeah, so I just want to get it straight in my head. So the flagpole remaining is part of the plan. So it's to not move the flagpole.
Yeah, we wouldn't do anything with the flagpole, at least in relation to this.
Okay, I'd just like to make a comment then. That I think you got two competing, similar, tall, narrow structures that to me visually would be difficult, but that's just my novice opinion. And if you could remove the flagpole, to me, that would be ideal. There's already flagpole in the other section of the park. There's already flagpole at the memorial, for the Veterans Memorial. There's also a flagpole at the corner of Pioneer, or whatever the name of the street is that goes around the waterway there. So there's a lot of flagpoles out there. I'm just questioning the need for a flagpole at all.
Yeah, and that's certainly a discussion. If we were to remove it, we would do it in September, aligning with. I'm not going to be able to think of it. A Navy. It's
The anniversary of the base.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, some kind of an anniversary with the Navy, and we would do it in conjunction with that. And we'd probably replace the pole at Veterans Memorial with this, if we were to do that. We're not going to get rid of it though.
I just wanted to kind of second what Tom said about that. And I was wondering if there was any feedback from the Arts Commission about that, because my impression when we were out there was they were happy with the location if the flagpole wasn't there for that specific reason. So I didn't know if there was any feedback.
Their feelings were exactly the same, and like I said, the discussion when we were out there was, oh, well, this flagpole's at the end of its life. We've had it from the Navy for a while. So it's time to retire it, I guess. And we don't necessarily need to put in another flagpole. But I think that's a discussion that we'll want to have with council. Well, what do you want to do with this?
Yeah, I would third that. I think I'd much rather see that space go to parking than the flagpole. I know that sounds almost sacrilegious in this town, but I feel like if we can repurpose that to somewhere else, I'm fine with where the statue is. That's great. And I think just enhance the parking and access there so we can activate that park so it does get used more, and then continue to be strategic about what we're going to put in there to actually have, you know, local citizen rather than transient population down there using and engaging. And I think that's a much better overall vision.
Yeah, which is fine. We can talk about that. I have no desire to have the perception that, oh, we're going to replace a naval flag staff with a piece of art. You know, so.
I know also when we were out there, there was some discussion of just moving that flagpole to like
The back
closer,
corner
yeah,
by the
closer
car.
to where the pavilion is right there, or closer to where the bathrooms are, just to balance it out a little bit. Because
Sure.
I just think both structures in proximity, it just
And that seems to be
doesn't look
the
good.
consensus. I would just
Yeah.
do that as part of the rest of the improvements to the park.
Sure.
So the motion we're looking for is just for approval of the location of the
It's,
statue.
right now, we're just talking about the location of the statue.
We're going to entertain a
Keep it in
motion for
mind,
that.
you know, all these other things, but we're not making
Yeah.
a final determination on any of that stuff yet. Try to treat that separately.
You guys have any other comments, or are you ready to put forth a motion?
I'll go ahead and put forth a motion to approve the location as is for the statue.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, we are also taking this item to the Arts Commission for recommendation to council, and then those recommendations will go to council, I think, the first meeting in May. Oh, no, June. I think there's originally planned for May 16th in the year to push it back in June. So it'll be the first meeting in June for council to ratify. And if we could have some representation from you guys for those recommendations, that'd be great.
Okay, we can go ahead and move on to item C, 2023 priorities.
How do you want to do this? I can share my screen and show you that. Excel document. So we talked about, actually at this site meeting, of getting together as I guess a special session separately, just to meet maybe at the Parks and Recreation office, and we can kind of talk on the whiteboard a little more about these, but I will let you guys steer this however you want. This is the sheet that I showed you last time. It has your powers and duties, the new ones that we have put in that are yet to be adopted, but we'll go ahead and just kind of assume that those will go through here. So this was based off of what we did similar to the Art Commission. So this is going to be So each of the items here in this column has your powers and duties. Board shall advise the city council regarding the planning, promotion, acquisition, construction, development, maintenance, and operation of parks, playgrounds, squares, and other recreational type facilities. The board shall advise city council regarding the planning, promotion, operation of the city's recreational programs, senior services, community special events, and other programming. Board shall advise city council regarding the implementation of the city's Tree City USA designation. Also investigate and study and report on city's urban tree canopy, planting, maintenance, removal of street trees. I'm sorry, I can make that.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah, sort of disappears then.
That's right. And next one is the board shall advise council on grant donations, other forms of funding to support operations in the city's recreational facilities and programs, and budgetary needs related to the operations of the department. The board shall review a complete inventory list of all property and equipment, which shall be updated annually. And additionally, the board shall prepare a Parks and Recreation program and report to City Council annually on that updated Parks and Recreation program. This one is kind of made up of other powers and duties that aren't necessarily called out in the code, but have been assigned to you through different policies and procedures and other areas of the code, designating parks, adoptions of rules and procedures for parks and facilities and programs, approval, you're the acting approval committee for memorials, different things like that, right? So this is sort of your catch-all for other things like that. So from those powers and each of those powers and duties for parks and facilities, programming, open space, conservation, our tree canopy, programs and budgetary financials, cost recovery model, things like that, and policy recommendations to council, we develop key issues. So here's kind of an idea of what those might look like. For this one, talking about planning and facilities and operations, develop an updated Parks and Recreation master plan, review the current plan, which we can do a little bit of today. Identify, foster, and promote stewardship of existing programs. Why do people come here? As local, what's happening? What are some fun things for people in the community to do? Promote positive economic impacts Parks and Recreation have on communities. Develop partnerships like with the North Whitby Parks and Recreation District, the school district, Main Street, the Chamber, county parks, other nonprofits. Promotion of existing facilities, our website, social media presence, different things like that. All right, so you identify the key issues that are coming out of your powers and duties as assigned to you through ordinance by council. And then from those key issues, what are your priorities? What are the goals that you have for bringing policy recommendations, ordinances to council, or you would like to see the Parks and Recreation Department work on as far as projects? So this is both policies and project driven and what goes in here. Now we've kind of limited this to about 4 for each power and duty, but you can assign however many you want based off these key issues. But just know, us as staff, we only have so much, bandwidth on our plate, and you guys only have so many meetings in a year that you can work on these. But these are really what's going to determine your action items. This is where you'll want to kind of break out into committees and work specifically with staff or with other members of the community in advancing these, whether it's getting educated on what those different key issues are, and what you want to bring back to council, whether it is a revision of the memorial policy, or you want to have a plan in place for sports fields at Harbor Heights for 2024, and how we're going to finance that and bring that proposal to council by the end of the year. And then we assign our board members or staff to each one of those. Then every month as we meet, we have kind of a designated person for that action item that kind of returns the reports and talk about it as a board. So that's the framework for how we'll put it together. What you feel the key issues are in each of these powers and duties, and what you want your goals to be, needs to be a discussion that happens with you as a board, and something that you want to what's important to you, from what you hear from your constituents and neighbors and around the community, from what feedback you get with the council, and we'll ensure that you have 1 or 2 work sessions with council every year to kind of do a check-in with them and show this document to them. Ask them, hey, are we on the right track with these? Do you feel like these key issues are what's important to you? Here's our priorities and goals for this year, and what action items we're taking right now to advance those. Is that in line with your vision of what you want us to do as a board? It also gives a good opportunity for you to have a funding ask to council if there's funding requests for projects, things like that. And then we can work that into the biennial budget. Any questions on the process?
I think it's a perfect format. And I'm anxious to get started on it. So this part I think is great. My concern is that we meet once a month and you don't make much progress that way, generally speaking, in this format. So your idea of meeting separately is, I think, the way to go. How often we need to do that, I don't know. I guess at the first meeting, we can kind of set an overall timeline or plan as how we want to get through this. I think it's good.
Brian, could you send us a copy of that and then a couple dates and times that would work for us to come meet with you to do some brainstorming?
Yeah, and I'd rather get moving on this sooner than later.
Yes.
We've kind of talked about doing this process for a little while, and then we had spring break and we had some people out. But like, I think we only need 24-hour notice. Is that right? For a special workshop?
Yeah, minimum.
Okay. If you want to take public comment, it's up to you.
Go ahead.
I could help, because I'm the chair of the art commission, and we met with Brian last month separately and got,
State your name.
oh, sorry, James Russell, chairman of the art commission. We met with Brian with a small group. I think we had 3 of us, and we got introduced to this. We talked about it at our last meeting, and what the vice chair is Cynthia Mason. So Cynthia and I met and looked at this, and because it's easy, we were there for almost 2.5 hours going through things and found it challenging, difficult, but at the same time, we expanded a lot of things, which really has led to looking at our review of powers and duties. We've got a pretty extensive list of that we're bringing forward. So having a meeting with the chair and the vice chair where you just sat around the table and looked at this thing with a computer and started typing in things, we found was a useful starting point.
Okay.
And then we turned around and took our input that we said, okay, here's step 1, and fired it out to all the other people on the commission saying, okay, take a look at this and see what you think. And we're meeting this Thursday. We're going to have our meeting on it, and we still have a lot of work to do.
Okay, so maybe Carrie, you and I could meet with Brian first, just to sit down and kind of go over this, and then push it out to the rest of the board.
It'll save you
Hours.
and time and procedure, and just to, okay, let's just build a framework on this.
Tomorrow or Wednesday work for other people. We do it over lunch.
Sure. I think that works. I think I've got something going on, but I can figure it out.
Tomorrow or Wednesday. What works better?
Give me 1 second to look.
I'm not sure it's a meeting I'd like to be excluded from.
So rather than just sit down and go over it, get some starting points, and then bring everybody back in.
Knowing where I understand on a subcommittee level, but knowing that we're overseeing even the subcommittees, I think it would benefit, to have more people there. I don't know what Tom's availability is, but I think his experience would also be a very valuable resource to have there. I personally wouldn't want to miss out, even if it's just simply to observe and see what's going on, because I would like to understand the rhythm and the flow of how we're coming to these decisions rather than having them then handed to me. It would help me for a better understanding, so I can help with whatever aspects I'm going to do to better set tone and vision.
Would Wednesday work then for everyone?
I'll make it work.
What time are you thinking? 12?
Yeah, 12.
And I'll notice it as a work session, a special work session. So it wouldn't take up public comment or anything, it would just be like a council workshop where you guys can just discuss.
Yeah, meeting at your office, Brian.
Yeah, I'll send out the invite right now. Do you want
Welcome to
to,
the community or something.
do you want to start on any of that today, or you want to wait until then?
I think probably wait until then, if you could send it out, and then we can each kind of take a look at it and think about it.
Okay.
And then hopefully come back with some ideas when we meet. And we're gonna come back to review powers and duty revisions after summer, you said, Mikhail, to take a look
Well, you want,
at that?
why
Or do you
don't
wanna
we,
do
why
it
don't we
more?
review it right now? You want to throw it
Okay.
up there?
Oh, goodness.
I'll make sure I have everyone on here. Carrie, Eric, Jana, Ronnie, Tom. Not missing anyone?
No.
Like, do we have an opening, Mikhail?
Yes, currently we have a vacancy for position 5. However, Mr. Jones will fill that position starting next meeting, and we have a candidate already proposed to fill the alternate seat, which will happen at the April 18th council meeting. I'm not sure why this is doing this, so I'm gonna do it this way. Councilmember Wiesner, can you see my screen share? We're having
Yes,
technical.
I can.
Okay. You want me to go for it, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Sorry that my back will be turned when I get to it. So again, like you previously discussed, we were changing the name to the Parks and Recreation Board. And that goes along with the expansion of the powers and duties. Most of this is just cleanup. We talked about the board will remain 5 members with 1 alternate, a council ex officio, and a non-voting student member from the local high school. That might be something you want to consider. We've looked at the MRSC, which is the Washington, I can't remember the whole acronym, but they work with cities and give advice on different things. They have a whole section on youth membership on boards. They have sample bylaws, and it's going to be up to the organization to decide if you want them to be voting or non-voting. Members. MRSC, Municipal Research Something Center. My apologies.
RSC. So I would suggest that they not be counted, I'll cover City Administrator Blaine Olborn, everybody knows who I am. I would suggest they not be counted for a quorum, the ex officio and the student member.
The next part is the terms. That's, I mentioned earlier, getting all the boards on the same term schedule, January, December is what a council follows. It just kind of makes it easier. And again, though, that would require to keep the positions staggered, we'd have to make sure that either 2 or 4 year terms. And then these are just some typographical changes, powers and duties. I'm not going to read these. That's basically what Brian just read when you were going through your the prior item. So we expanded the powers and duties to include the special events, review senior services and programming.
Brian, I'll discuss with you, but I would suggest mays instead of shalls. So it's optional. Yeah, well, yeah, because if you have it as a shell and then we bring something forward and you didn't do it, or you chose not to look at those items, then it makes it more flexible. We've been into that with council. We had stuff like the council shall raise the rates on this certain item. We've taken away some of that stuff. So certainly having it there is a may, so you kind of know what areas you want to work on, but I would suggest mays rather than shells.
There's already shall existing in the document. Do you want us to change all of those?
Yes.
We'll take a look at it.
I talked to the city
The
attorney
attorney.
about it too, but I
Okay.
know it gives you the flexibility. What if you don't want to do that? There may be some of those areas you just said, well, we're not going to comment on them. So if it's shell, you have to do it. So may get you more options.
Okay,
Yeah, I totally agree.
for the park definition, based on the city attorney advice, we just kind of cleaned it up. And we can add or remove anything from the definition as if something were to come up in the future and it's not included here. It's just very easy to do an amendment.
Can you back up a paragraph?
Sure. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. Which one?
It's, I guess in the middle of 230, number 6.
Okay.
In the middle, it says, additionally, the board shall prepare a park and recreation program. It doesn't sound right. Is that our job to prepare the park and recreation programs since we're in advisory capacity?
That was original. That's before my time. This is the original powers and duties when the board was created, I believe. You want to change the wording of that?
I think it should somehow be termed, advises, reviews, or whatever, since it's really the operation that develops the program.
Okay.
But if you do the may in there that I talked about, that'll kind of soften it down too.
It might be worth, yeah, maybe, right, changing the shall to may, but maybe replace program with plan.
I like that, yeah.
Well, let me change it on the fly.
Which I think is what was meant by that definition when they originally put it in.
Was that all?
Yeah, thank you.
And under parks defined, Brian, like recreational facilities, are you going to call those in as parks too? You're expanding the definition there.
Yeah, so it has down at the bottom there, and it's already in there.
Right here.
Oh, facilities.
As well as other recreational facilities where
Okay.
they use the public.
Excluding the marina.
Excluding the marina, I'd recommend
Yeah.
we take that part out and include the marina.
Yeah.
Since it is part of Catalina Park and they're now part of the Parks and Recreation Department. And we'll probably look at including them with some of our grant funding for improvements of marina as well.
Okay. And the last section is just cleaning up the duties. So the officers will be, for boards and committees, will be the chair and vice chair. And the office of the city clerk will be responsible for recording and minutes taking for all the boards instead of trying to have a member do that. That was an old provision.
Thank you.
And as far as this board, right now, your regular meetings, you do meet once a month. The code says that you will at least hold a meeting once every other month. So I think but I think you guys will be getting busier than less, so if you want to just keep it like that, or it can change to meet once a month. But that gives you some flexibility if you need to cancel a meeting for a lack of business or for any other reason.
Hey, Mikhail, there was one area that I wanted to talk with you and the board about. So under powers and duties, the very last paragraph on number 6, it is now. So that's 20, 30, 30.
Oh, back up here.
Yeah, right there, number 6.
Yeah.
At the bottom of that, and I don't know if this was set up when they first implemented those ordinances it's referring to.
Did I do?
It says that the board shall report to the city council annually prior to May 31st regarding an updated Parks and Recreation program. I think that was
Sorry, I don't know how to
at the
get that out.
creation of it. Is that something we want to keep in there, or do we want to reword it with some kind of language basically saying that the board will go and talk with city council about the master plan or
Brian, I would suggest just a may in there also. The Parks and Recreation Board may report to the city council annually and just take out the date.
Yeah, okay.
And I wouldn't even have to necessarily put all the other stuff in there. I think it's a goal to do that under presentations like we do with other groups, but yeah, trying to put a date in there.
Right,
It's not really, and I would take out that May date and just leave the annual in there.
Oh, goodness.
Is that timeframe aligned with your annual programming, the May 31st? Do you have any kind of schedule?
And I don't know the whole history of where that date came from. I'm guessing when they approved this ordinance, they wanted for the newly created board to kind of come and return a report on some of this stuff, on a creation of a Parks and Recreation plan. That's, I mean, long gone. I think that was specifically for that year that was planned.
Oh, that's right.
And like Blaine said, I don't think we need to have a set date that we go and do that, but we'll make sure that we have at least 1 or 2 workshops with city council for you guys to touch base with them and talk a little bit more about the plan.
I think it also tied into summer programming that used to be more robust decades ago. And so it was done in order to make sure that went off.
Yeah, and that could be, and so we'll obviously,
Yeah, all that stuff. that you
we'll
have.
be doing programming year round, kind of going forward with the creation of the recreation division. I sent you all this Parks Recreation Open Space Plan prior to the meeting. If you get a chance to just look over it, this was done in 2019. It's mostly central around parks and open spaces because we really didn't have much of a recreation or programming presence previously. But if you give it a look over, I think it'll help with our discussion on Wednesday. And just kind of going along with that in the recreation programming side of it. So we met with Blaine and the mayor, as well as Ramp House Finance, David Goldman, who's our finance director, on how we'll go forward in creating this recreation division. So how it looks is we will take the senior services division and turn that into the community recreation programs division. Liz Lang, who is our senior services administrator, will change her title to our community recreation manager. And then we are going to go in council to ask for the creation of a recreation coordinator position. They'll take on some of the scheduling of the sports fields, as well as creation of new recreation programs. They'll also start the first of our art programs as well, until we get to a point that we need to split those out. But that'll be a new position. It's funded partially through some savings we have with pulling parks out of public works. A portion of their budget goes towards supporting supervisors in that department. That savings, which is about $107,000, will fund some of the changes, and then the rest of it is funded through revenue of the programs. Anticipating somewhere between 120 to 150% cost recovery in those programs to support supplies and staff, and as well as overhead for the recreation coordinator position.
Will that position also be looking towards those strategic integrative partnerships that we had highlighted on that spreadsheet as well?
Yeah, they'll be helping me, and Liz will take a much more active role in some of that as well as the manager over recreation.
Okay.
Outside of senior services, she's going to delegate some of that down a little bit to some additional staff.
Okay. Just want to make sure that that's highlighted for somebody who's actually going to be point on managing that with the school district and.
Yeah, and I'll do quite a bit of that on the front end to start out and then delegate it as we go along. But really that section, the 20, 30, 30 powers and duties, which we have listed out in that sheet, that's kind of neat that tells you guys, okay, this is what we need to be focusing on. So make sure you read through that section really well. Let me and Mikhail, you can just copy both of us if you have any suggestions for changes in that. And we can really tweak anything. My focus on it was just the expansion of outside parks, really bringing in senior services, a little bit of marina, but really talking more about recreational programming in that. But if there are things that are already established here that you feel like, you know what, this really should be our focus. Let's see what the city council thinks of that. This is open for you to give us any suggestions that you have, and we'll take that back to council and they can look through it and decide if that matches what their vision is for you guys. And we send them a copy of this one.
Mm-hmm. I can send it too.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay. We'll move on to Parks and Recreation Director report.
We did have on here, we actually wanted to take the bulk of our time to talk about dog leash rules and signs and laws. Our dog leash guy wouldn't be able to make it to this meeting, so we moved that to next meeting. Sorry. So we'll walk off probably half and then just have a discussion. So we want to talk quite a bit about that, especially as we are working on an active transportation plan. Part of what we'll do with that, along with the Parks and Rec master plan, is develop a trails plan and really start looking at investment into bike paths, make multimodal transportation trails, improvement to some of our existing paths and connecting it in so we have a good integrated and fully connected network of trails for both commuter trails and recreational trails. Harbor Heights is an area we're going to have a lot of discussion on in the next couple of months. The original plan was just to make it all sports fields. That's going to take a lot of funding, and we'll definitely can put some sports fields up there, but we have this property that's just sitting there unused right now. A really easy way to at least start getting some public benefit out of it would be to install some trails, single track trails. You can do educational nature trails as well as mountain biking trails, and put in some pump tracks and different things like that. It's about 75 acres. It has a nice 75-foot drop from top to base. Where you have the trailhead for that and where it spits you out, and whether we want to do it as a loop or all things we'll discuss. But that's something I'm looking pretty heavily at because it's easy to get funding for trails. And it's really easy to get volunteer work. And the International Mountain Bike Association is really good at both helping cities go after grants, provide funding, do donations themselves to a community, as well as helping get volunteers to rough in some trails, or get a contractor if we need to get into mini excavators and things like that. Since this is all fairly flat and not on the mountainside, it's a lot easier to do. So something that we'll want to look at.
Is that something where we could schedule a site visit to
Yeah,
go out and do?
yeah,
Because I think it would help better understand why the trails would be really important there if more people could actually see the area of land.
Yeah, I understood a lot more of the vision of not just what the team was originally thinking as a replacement for the fields that would be lost up for a new gym when the school goes in, but also other opportunities around it. You really get a good vision of it being on site. I agree. So yeah, we can definitely schedule that.
Do we have any statistics relating to demand for mountain biking within city limits?
Well, there isn't a lot of mountain biking in city limits. Most of the mountain biking happens outside of city limits.
Right.
But yeah, I can bring you uses of like the trails down around Coopville and on some of the lands around some of the island. Yeah, hotels and things like that. But,
Yeah, I was just curious what we had as far as demand from residents for said single track mountain biking when they have the Kettles and they have Anacortes Sports Lands, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
From that work.
yeah, I've probably had maybe 5 or 6 people come and talk to me about it. Definitely not as many as other issues in the city, but it's a piece of land that we have and it's kind of easy. It's low hanging fruit.
Yeah. I just didn't know as opposed to dedicated walking trails and or running trails, given that there's a wider use of those and existing use versus also, I would say the negative impact of cycling that's happened in our existing parks, including Fort Nugent Park, the way the cycling club, I would say, destroys that park and does very little cleanup for themselves. Without a significant demand, I would be very hesitant to take a premier acreage park and hand that over to them, knowing that their history, and I think Tally can vouch for this, has been more destructive than additive to the quality and condition of our parks. So it's something historically to take a look at, unless the demand is so great that we can't ignore that. They've been very poor stewards historically of our park lands. So it's just something to consider when you go forward and hand them something out, as well as having spaces for walkers, because multi-use between walkers, foot traffic, and mountain biking is theoretically a wonderful idea, and in practicality, a liability issue. So those would be some of my concerns regarding that. Unless demand so outweighs concern that we need to do it, I would rather have the county and Anacortes take on any of those liability issues rather than us.
We can reach out to the county and see what they have to say about how it's been going for them down there.
Yeah, and that's good feedback. I think, do a site visit when we do put this on. We'll do a little extra promotion of the agenda item and see if we can get some of the public out to comment one way or another on it.
Ryan, can I bring up an item?
Yes, sir.
Under your your report here?
Yeah.
Just to let people know, we already have the Friend Park, our Friend Marsh. We have the 35 acres as walking trails, and then we have the 9 acres that's more seated and such. We have the county has a conservation futures grant that the city applied for. There's 3 parcels that are kind of, I think total 3 acres that are kind of in that area and kind of attached to it. 2 of them are off of Bay Shore, and 1 of them is the waterfront that would Village Edition. Can you bring up the county map? Is that what you're doing?
Oh, I was just gonna bring up a Google.
What's that?
I was just gonna bring up a Google map,
Okay, that'll work.
or do you want me to?
It shows the parcels on
Oh,
the
okay.
parcel map, but you can, either one. We didn't do fare too well with competing with Langley and Freeland. There's 2 other grants that are in the process there, but it does go to the county commission, and certainly park board members could voice their support of that. I can give you more information of the packet and putting that out there. Kind of been viewing this more of a stormwater and that kind of area there, but it certainly benefits parks. You got it there.
I know I gotta share my screen so the people online can see it.
Okay. Yeah, so there's 1 parcel to the south there. Can you go a little bit bigger there?
Is that the end of Dillard Lane?
Yeah, it's down on the bottom right here, here. Yeah, and it's pretty critical on this piece right here because we don't have technically any access here. This parcel here is what I'm talking about that we have a grant proposal for, by Carl Friend, very friendly about it. He bought the other property for us and then he donated the other one here. So possibility of a parking lot, and it would really expand the access and somebody could develop this property and close it off and not have access to it. And then the other two parcels are up here, this one over here and this one here. This one's kind of wetlands, not a lot of money cost for this one. This one was talk about housing here. That would really infringe upon the nice park that we have through here and the trails through there that we have. So that grant request is out there. Like I mentioned, we didn't fare very well with the Citizen Advisory Committee. We're competing with some other environmental groups that do this all the time, Whitby Camino Land Trust and a group down in Freeland that has some good proposals there, but certainly the county commission makes the ultimate decision.
Have we done any, given there's that slough running behind that piece
Oh,
of property
sorry.
right there? No, you're okay. Has there been any investigation into what the ability to put a parking lot there between the shoreline and that slough that's in behind that little
Oh, there's
trapezoidal
ability,
piece?
yeah.
Okay,
I mean, we walked it. I mean, it hasn't been studied too much, and that was part of the whole area. The other plans that we had a lot more environmental studies, and it's not on a really high priority there, but it certainly would be beneficial for us to have that property, and it's pretty critical access, so.
especially because people are using it anyway, believing that it's an extension of the trail back to Dillard Avenue and
Oh, yeah.
bothering that home around the very end on the water side, so that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I know that's another facility, but there's always people out there enjoying that nice acreage walking around, so.
For sure.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Just a couple dates to be aware of that we mentioned. So the next council meeting on April 18th, we'll do the proclamation for Arbor Day in the Tree City, USA, and just go over the Arbor Day event. We have Miss Jana there for that. On April 26th, there'll be council's workshop. We're bringing back to them just an update on the pickleball MOU. So we've been meeting with contractors to get pricing on the cost of what improvements to that pickleball court would be. So the pickleball court is in Rotary Park, that's school district. It's programmed by the North Whitby Recreation District. I think there was just a kind of different understanding of what the city might get out of this if we were to do this for them. There has been a call from the community on wanting to get the pickleball courts refurbished. They're not city property and we don't program them. We have budgeted $50,000 from REAP funding for this project. This project was originally put together in 2016 for I think it was $80,000 or $90,000 for putting in pickleball courts at Neal Park. During that time, that served $50,000 from REAP. The additional monies were meant to be brought in through donations, and whether they just couldn't do that or whatever the issue was with that, they ended up changing that project, putting it to Rotary Park and just refurbishing the school district's courts to put in a couple additional courts. We have some issues with the surfacing there that needs to be redone and the fences put in. One quote we have from a contractor is about $90,000. Tally just met with another one, although they really just do the painting.
Yeah.
So we have to get an asphalt company in and then fencing. I'm going to guess
It'd
they'll
be
also come in
relative.
somewhere similar, around $100,000. So what I'm going to bring back to council is if you want to do this project as is listed in the MOU, we need additional funding to do that. My suggestion would be that additional funding comes from the school districts and or the North Whitby Recreation District. And we're happy to manage the project if council wants us to. I'd also recommend the school district manage their own facilities project. Or we can look at doing a new pickleball court at one of those parks, whether it's Neal, Sumner is a really good location. Fort Nugent would also be a good location where we have footprints already for those. And for probably $140,000 or so, you can put in new courts. So we'll kind of leave it to council how they want us to proceed, but the goal is to bring up some options and give a little history on it, and then them to give us direction on what they want to do with this LRD. A year ago, the park manager had gone out to meet with some contractors, and then nothing ended up happening after that. I'm guessing the cost came back way too much, and it was just sort of drops. And then we had some turnover. So, but we do want to be responsive to this, and let the Pickleball Association kind of know how we're going to get this moving forward again, and have something done. I'd love to have it done before programming really starts happening during the summer. So I'll try to move on it very quickly once we get council's direction. And I'd love to get any feedback from you guys.
Does council have a recommendation from us in regards to that MOU? Because we discussed it at our last meeting, and I don't think there were some mixed feelings about that. I don't think there's a lot of enthusiasm about spending money on a potentially unnecessary entanglement with two other parties. But we haven't offered them an official.
No, I don't think there's a motion on it. We really didn't have it as an item, but council did ask the staff bring this back. So if you would like to, I know we didn't have it on the agenda, but if you'd like to give a recommendation to council, I'll include that in the presentation.
I think that would be good, because I know I definitely hesitant about taking the funds to redo the city's site, or not city, the school district's site that we don't even use, that's used by the rec district. So if you guys want to do that, and
Sorry, if we want to do what?
make a recommendation to go along with Brian.
We have a few minutes of discussion about it, I think, before we make a recommendation.
Do you want to give a little background so everyone?
Yeah, please.
Again, Oak Harbor City Minister.
Sure, yeah.
And we did have some people come to council and talked about asking about fixing it up, and did a public comment on it, and then the council can't discuss it as it wasn't on the agenda, but then they asked for staff to bring it to them, and Brian has it on the April workshop to discuss pickleball and where it goes and what the options are.
Yeah, April 26th. So basically the background is, like I said, this was originally a city project for Neal Park in 2016. It was budgeted for $90,000. That was later scrapped and changed to an agreement with the school district in the form of a MOU. And basically what it says is that the city has some funding to refurbish pickleball courts in exchange for the city's use of the district's pickleball courts outside of school hours. There really isn't any kind of scope of what that refurbishment means or looks like, or how much funding we give or anything like that. It's very broad. But we don't program it. We don't actually utilize it. The North Woodby Recreation District does. So this was put together in April 2022. There was $50,000 that had been designated through REAP funding for the project. The park manager went and met with a couple contractors, and nothing ended up happening after that. I'm guessing that he got numbers far above $50,000. I know there was some discussion about, well, could the city internally do it? We have a streets department that could do some of the asphalting, and we'd have to get a contractor to do the painting and striping and the fencing. But we could save quite a bit of money by doing that. That's an option as well. I don't know if that would still fit in the 50,000 or not, but nothing was done after that. So it's just been on the shelf for about a year. When I came in and looked at all the different projects that were kind of waiting in the wings and what had funding and what didn't, when I look at this, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I knew right away, well, you can't do a pickleball even refurbishment for $50,000. That's not gonna work. And why are we doing this? This is a school district property and the district's programming. What's the benefit to the city out of it? There'll be a benefit to the community. Certainly, those courts do need to be refurbished. I absolutely agree that needs to happen. And we have very few pickleball courts in the community. It's a very popular sport. It is the state's designated state sport is pickleball, right?
Originated in Washington State.
Yeah.
And I love pickleball. I would love to put in all kinds of pickleball courts. And we definitely will do that. But we need to figure out, okay, well, what do we do with this right now?
What was the purpose of moving it from Neal Park? Was that strictly financial?
I
I can
would,
speak to that. I have a little
Yeah, go ahead.
history here and we have different opinions. So sometimes we're just pivoting and that's, just what happens when you have change in staff here. So like you mentioned, there was a long process way back in 2016 in a proposal for $90,000 to put a pickleball court in Neal Park. That was a long process. It assumed $30,000 in donations, and what happened is we had $50,000 in the budget and $30,000 in donations. When we started looking at the donations, we found out there was really no donations. There wasn't a group that was willing to come up with the $30,000. And so we thought, well, maybe we can just repair the existing one that we kind of have some relationship with on the school property. We were hesitant to put money into it without an agreement. So we did one of my points was when the park manager asked me about it, it goes, as an alternative, let's just improve the court that's already being used on the school district property. And so we did do an agreement with them of this, but now, looking at this new group of new people, looking at a new set of eyes, it's coming at, well, was that a really good proposal, or is that something we pivot again and look for alternatives and look for other locations. They did have two people that came to the council and they talked about going into Sumner Park where where the tennis courts are. But I think after talking to Brian and such, we don't have a lot of tennis courts either. So
They get used.
and they get used. And so, and pickleball was designed so it can go into tennis courts. And I think the ones in the school district were originally, those were tennis courts too, aren't they?
I think they were too.
Yeah, where they
Yeah,
were
they were.
tennis courts at one time and got repurposed into that. So that's where we're kind of in. So now we're in this kind of strategy where do we look at alternative locations? Do we continue with the additional plan? But like Brian said, he doesn't have enough funding to really go forward. And it was over optimistic probably on previous staff on trying to do $50,000 to rehab those. Or do we want to look long-term and really look at the cities trying to get money and look at other alternatives and locations?
I mean, I think pickleball community deserves better than some joint hodgepodge set up with Parks and Rec and, the school district. Those courts have always been a problem, no matter how many times they've been resurfaced. It was tennis, then there was basketball courts there, and you were dribbling off roofs, so those things came off. Over the history of my time here, that's been just always kind of a mess. It's covered in pine needles and pine cones, so the sweeping and maintenance of it is significant. Sumner's already set up. There is room there for pickleball courts adjacent to the existing tennis courts. It's already known for racket sports. It seems to me like a much better location. I don't like the idea of Fort Nugent because that park's already going to feel the squeeze when we lose those sports fields there, and to kind of try to fit one more thing in there might not be the best use of space, considering I'm figuring out how we're going to really have to pivot to make that space change in some near future. But Sumner has just grass there that doesn't really get used for anything. It's not big enough for soccer or baseball or anything like that. There's a handful of trees that are there, but nothing that couldn't be removed. There's some aging playground equipment, if I'm not mistaken, that's kind of already in our eyesight for removal anyway, or replacement. I'm not sure how often it gets used, but
Neal is another option.
the only thing I worry about with Neal is knowing that we're using soccer fields all over the place temporarily, that being a place that fits the smaller
Yeah,
kids.
it's the six.
There's other spaces in there though too.
I mean, unless maybe we put it in front of where the, parallel to whatever that is, fourth or sixth,
Over on the
in front of the,
Garden side.
windmill, then that would be a decent place, because you're not gonna put soccer there, but being sensitive to having that grass still there as an open green space for a while we figure out where soccer's gonna go, seems wise to me rather than putting a
They're
pickleball.
nice because they already have parking lots established,
Right, on both sides.
so you
Yeah.
got parking, which would be really helpful, I think. for
and
you.
something to keep in mind, cities used to do flex use sports
Sumner's
courts,
tighter on
just,
the park.
as a
It does
cost
have some,
savings.
But not now.
But both of the national associations have gone the way of separating them out rather than figuring out how to make the courts work together. And you can't do official tournaments on shared use courts that are striped. So now cities are having separate designated courts for tennis and pickleball rather than trying to stripe them.
If I was going to motion for a proposal, which I'm not at this right second, I would be something along scrapping that MOU and then revisiting the idea to give a better facility that would allow for the pickleball community to have more flexibility in what they do for events. You know, that they would actually be able to host events or even have their own leagues and things like that. So they would have official space to do that.
And I think you're right. I think that's what they're, like the group that is, that's what they're kind of looking for too, is a place to go and a place to set up their events and stuff. So I think you're on the right track there.
They've been waiting for years.
Yeah.
So I know they're getting anxious. And so, like I said, we do want to move it as fast as possible. We just want to make sure that we're moving in a direction that makes sense.
They need to get their wallets out then, because that was the holdup last time, right? I mean, they're anxious. They had now 7 years pause, which is unfortunate, but now they need to, shake some trees to make that stuff happen. And that's how it works in a small town, So
I guess what I'm hearing, we shouldn't settle for something. We should do it right if we can do it right. I understand funding's an issue. But just from what little I know, I would tend to agree with what's already been said here, so we're going to go to separate site under city control and city funding. And I question, I think you addressed it kind of, it might cost a little bit more to start fresh, but maybe not a lot more than trying to convert a difficult situation, a difficult court. So from a funding perspective, I'm not sure there's that much of an impact.
The tree roots might lead into more of the school district property than we all realize too, so keep that in mind that if you're looking for a pickleball spot, you're preferably without trees to start with.
Absolutely.
Can I say something?
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick, guys, and let you know, I think you're spot on. I think the issue from council's perspective was we were settling, by heading to the school district property, and that was just a stopgap measure being driven by budgets, and that's not the way we should be doing business, right? We should be doing it right. We shouldn't just be throwing money at stuff just because it seems like it's convenient for now. And so I think that was council's concern. I think council would like to see this done right. And I totally agree that having a pickleball court amongst trees, not only from the tree root standpoint, but the sweeping and the pine cones and all that thing, it makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. So I think you guys are heading the right direction with that conversation for sure.
Thanks, Jim.
Just 2 quick things. So not only the tree roots and everything, but the pine needles and everything sitting on the surface degrades the surface. I mean, it's an acidic thing that sits there. But we just had a capital project and we just built a forecourt that it was covered. I do want to say that it was covered, and it was almost $1.4 million. So we were able to get a $700,000 donation in, which obviously helped. But, and of course it was Public Works, which yours would be as well. So
Where was this at?
this is in Skagit County. Anyways, I just want to toss that.
It's kind of a tricky situation with the trees too and the tree roots. I mean, the odds of something going wrong with the trees when you start ripping out the roots is pretty slim. I mean, I had Bob, our arborist, look at it and he thought it'd be okay, but there's still always that maybe, you kill one of them trees on someone else's property, basically. It's kind of nervous, you're like,
yeah, and plus those mature trees are the charm of that space. I
Yes,
mean,
they
that's
do.
really all that space offers is that you have these cool spaced out mature trees right there.
So how do we go forward? Do we make a proposal to identify a site? Something about, what's the best way to approach this?
So I think right now we're just making a recommendation that you can take to your workshop with them, correct?
Yeah, I'm bringing back options and information to council and I'm deferring to council on how they want to proceed, but if you guys have a recommendation to council on how you think they should proceed.
So can I make a motion for a recommendation?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we make a recommendation to abandon the MOU as it currently exists. for pickleball courts and to look for another idea,
Permanent home.
a permanent, city property place for that. There's a clear motion for you.
We'll get you covered, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All those in favor? Motion passes.
Okay, so just so I can make sure I understand what you're saying is, your recommendation to council is to exit the MOU, not proceed with any renovation on that property existing, and bring back plans for installation of new pickleball courts on city property.
Correct. Thanks, Brian.
Can I say something? I'm Barbara Arms. I was at that meeting with the pickleball people. Maybe we should, you probably have their information, maybe we should talk to them and say, hey, we really want to do a project, but we don't have all that money. If you are so passionate, and maybe it's the time to encourage them to do donations and to work together, because they go off island. That's where they're going all the time. So maybe they can band together and talk to them as a group and say, hey, look we really care about this. We really want this, but we have limits. Can you help us? And maybe that would be a way to encourage them to rouse their friends and their donations, because that lady was really passionate. So maybe this is the time to do it. So there's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, to that end, I think we want to work on pull from the community rather than push. So if, Tom is familiar with the pickleball community, getting involved a little bit. And
Just a couple months ago.
I know a few people, but I think put the ball in their court, knowing that there's an opportunity, sorry for the bad pun, and see if they want to do anything.
Yeah.
If they want to pull, then great, then we can work with them. And if not, then we can move on to other projects where there is pull from the community.
Well, it seems to me that one is the proposal that we just made, that's step one. Two would be to get some kind of cost estimate that was unrealistic.
That's what we're working on right now. Yeah, we have.
And then approach the budgeting part of it.
Yeah. I'll reach out to both the school district and the Parks and Recreation District, as well as the Pickleball Association. See what what information or commitment they have for council as a previous.
Is there a pickleball association, Oak Harbor Pickleball Association?
I guess it's.
North Woodby
I know there's a group.
It's North Woodby
I think
Picklers.
there is.
They went and presented to the Parks and Recreation District. I was actually at that meeting when they presented, and the district basically said, well, this is great, but it's not our property. And then they went to council, and council kind of said the same thing, that's great, it's not our property, but we do have an MOU about it, so we'll bring that back. Really, they need to talk to the school district, but so whoever that was, I'll get their contact info from Jay Cochran. The district, and reach out.
I just want to say, I was recently out officiating a softball game in Orcas Island, and they have recently built a really nice looking pickleball court. So since it's fairly recent, and that they may be someone to consult as well to find out what that ended up costing them, etc. It's brand new.
Sorry. My name is Tim Stoker, sorry.
Oh, I'm ready to climb. Sorry.
Would the thought even be to have it covered, or would it just be to have it open? Because I think, obviously that's why it's not a like for like comparison, because ours was covered, so obviously it's more expensive. But, and then the other thing I'll say too is that I could probably give you the contact information for the North Woodby Picklers gentleman, the president. They rent from me.
Obviously, there's a very large span, whether you do it in asphalt, you do it in concrete, you do it in post-tension concrete, which is the standard for most tennis courts that are professionally done, as well as pickleball courts. Do you have it covered? Do you have it lit? Do you have it enclosed for year-round use? Do you have it fenced or not fenced? It's a lot of different things that affect cost. It really is, what's the desire of the community and what's our ability for funding. All things that would go through a planning process and outreach process.
Again, you can leave it to the club to see the scope that they want, and how much they're gonna put skin in the game in order to have those options of extra amenities available. That's what has to happen.
Well, the other thing too is if you lease it out when you're done.
Sorry, that was one director. Way longer than I was expecting, but just to wrap up here. Smith Park, so
Go back here, did they vote?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, we did.
That's what I had done. They went really fast.
Smith Park had a good Easter egg hunt over the weekend. We are doing some improvements out there. The Main Street Association is partnering with us to do some improvements to the pavilion, and we're going to get the fence painted on the north and south side as well. We're also going to be installing a little botanical garden for the garden club and their 100-year centennial. There's a very nice rock with a nice flat surface on the southwest corner of the park. And it's a very densely treed area, which is a pain in the butt for us to mow anyway. So we're going to create a border there and take out that turf and turn it into garden beds for them. Turn that boulder and put a plaque for the garden club's 100th centennial anniversary on there, as well as if you've ever been over there to the park, come by that southwest entrance, you'll see two very large granite pillars. Those are going to be carved with Smith Park and either have the date of the park or the city, or we'll put, or maybe it's just a street address. I don't know, we'll put something else on there as an identifier, but mostly meant for historical purposes there at the beginning of the path. We'll also look at improvements to that path, make it ADA accessible. We're going to take out that light pole and put in a conduit to bury those electric lines and get power back over to the so that's lit, as well as some safety bollards in the park. All pretty easy improvements, so that'll all happen this year. And then we're meeting this week to talk about designating Smith Park as on the historic registry. As a historic nomination. That discussion will happen on Wednesday. And
Are there any plans to do anything with the large boulder group on the northeast side? That's kind of also a landscaping challenge.
They have plants planted in there already.
Okay.
It's just different lilies and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, we haven't planned on moving the boulders.
No, I didn't
around.
mean any moving in. I just didn't know of any beautification around it because I know it's kind of a.
yeah, we're working with both the Gary Oak Society and the Garden Club on these natural flower bed location. That's another location.
Okay.
Kind of do a similar thing that we'll do in the southeast. And then they have a couple little designated beds around as well.
Okay. It just seems like a natural kind of and good eyeballs on that little spot there.
That park is tricky to work on because of the Gideon has to get in there or anything you do just about, and all the oak trees. So it's a challenge to do any projects in there and make things happen. I do think we can make all that stuff happen. So we'll just have to go through it one step at a time and check it off our list.
A couple of little city events coming up just to be aware of. The Wearable Art Show is April 22nd at the center. I'm not sure if there's still tickets available or not. We sell out every year. The foundation, we work with them for a nice dinner. There's alcohol, and then some pretty neat little stuff, kind of a catwalk display of wearable art. And the theme this year is foliage. So it's kind of plant flower based. Should be pretty interesting. And then we have two other events. One's the senior event High Tea. That is May 13th. And then also May 13th later that evening is a community dance. And that's open to the community. The Oak Harbor High School Jazz Band will be playing for that. And that's also at the center. So that's it for me.
I'd just like to make a kind of a public comment from a happy citizen. The Garden Club did all the daffodil work. Wow, they did great.
Almost 7,000.
Oh my God, I mean, you can't miss it. It really does a lot.
And they were out there in the horrible weather too, putting them in. They were drowned.
So if there's some way we can get back to them, it's a great job. Just noticed.
They need a couple new pots. I broke them when I moved the hurt piece in.
Were there any other board member comments? Then, meeting is adjourned at 11:37 a.m.
We'll see.